we have had one full-time person working 40+ hours a week and a group of part-time employees working 40+ hours per week. So that's been in place for 18 months. This is simply adding on the number of part-time hours to ensure coverage.
Okay, so if this ends up being the way that it stays, how much is the city on the hook for it next year for this?
Again, as I mentioned, this is just focused on the short term. There are many options long-term to consider. I haven't got into those, but there are many different ways we can go. This 120 days allows us to provide the service while also allowing us to assess various future options.
Okay, I want to say this as a citizen too. As I listened to the two ladies talk, I heard the lady was just up here saying, well, I couldn't meet the call because I was getting ready for work. The other lady was up here and says, yeah, we do miss a few things here and there. Well, I think as citizens, that's what we are concerned about, is that when they do miss it, then something's going to happen. I personally have not experienced it, but I know that there's a general fear amongst the elderly population, at least those that I talk to, when there's response times upwards of 30 minutes when they call 911. And I think as a citizen who cares about what this city is spending, not just on this, but on everything, for us to spend that kind of money is good, but I think we're worried that we want to get our money's worth. You know what I mean? And for the elderly people who are worried about these response times, it's fearful. I hear it from them in church. I hear from them everywhere. And they have made claims of 30 to 45 minute response times. And there are situations where people die, you know, in that amount of time or less. So also, I think we're concerned too as citizens that if something like what happened the other night, which I'm not aware of, where the lady died, okay, then the city gets sued. I don't think that we can afford it. I mean, if it's our responsibility, like y'all were saying, to provide these EMTs and these kind of things, and then somebody dies as a result of calling 911, no one's showing up, and the city gets sued, that's something we're on hook for, I would think. And we don't, in my opinion, we don't have that kind of money. I mean, I watch what gets spent in here every month, and I hear BB say that we're doing good, and I'm sure we probably are because he's a very smart man. But at some point with 6,000 people, we're going to run out of money, I would think. So I just want to say that as, you know, as a concerned citizen. I see both sides, but I don't think there's any easy answer here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And I just want to clarify that those 30-minute response times are few and far between.
I think it happens more than
very seldom does that happen.
I think it happens more in the county than here.
Yeah, but it's, you know, with the Covington Rescue Squad, their response time is good. Very seldom do you see a 30, 45 minute.
I'm aware you're not the county, but it has happened here. I've heard it.
It has, but it happens everywhere. That's, you know, we had a truck fire up on Allegheny Avenue yesterday or another day. She had to be towed twice. That stuff happens. In the middle of the day, people at work, you can't get everybody up when you need them out. I understand that. I know that this council has tried to work with the squad. We, the city manager, the vice mayor, myself, we met with the squad 2 years ago trying to come up with some solutions. As far as I'm concerned, I thought we were very supportive of the squad, and all I've ever done is tried to do what we can to help. I see this as a short-term solution to come up with a long-term plan. We got 120 days, we can come up with a real plan that takes into consideration the needs of the volunteers, takes into consideration the needs of the citizens, and takes into consideration what the city can do. Do I want to spend $103,000 in the next 120 days? No, I do not. But I'm not sure we have an option right now, but I know we can work forward and come up with a plan that we can make a difference. But we've got to work together. Squad and council have to work together. If we're going to get into an arguing match, it's over with, because it's just not, we'll never come up with a solution if nobody's willing to share and to work together and make some, what would it be, some concessions. Some concessions.
Greg Burton, Captain Covington Rescue Squad. Tuesday, when I returned home from vacation, I got a call 10 minutes after I walked in the door. We got an issue. We got to take care of it. And long story short, the rescue squad was charged with coming up with a plan for committed coverage. That's what we were told. We have to have, matter of fact, what I was actually told was, at the city council meeting Tuesday night, the rescue squad is going to be suspended. That was the first words that I was told. After that happened, you can look at each other.
Who told you that, Greg?
Chief Morgan told me that.
I told you what, I'm sorry.
As of the city council meeting Tuesday night, the rescue squad was going to be suspended. That's the first words that come out of your mouth when I come in your meeting on Tuesday afternoon.
Greg and other people were there. I didn't tell you it would be, okay, if you're gonna say I said what, I said they were going to be, I said there were different options on the table. At least be fair to me.
But was that out there?
I said there were
suspension?
many different options. I said there were many different options.
Okay.
And that may be one. I called you earlier so that way you know
Right.
what was gonna be discussed. I didn't tell you anything for certain.
It was going to come up at the city council meeting Tuesday
It
night.
was under consideration among other options.
Right. It was under consideration to come up at the city council meeting Tuesday night with no knowledge to us. Had Chief Morgan not called me that afternoon, there was going to be an action taken with no knowledge to any of the volunteers.
Didn't we meet Tuesday afternoon?
We did. I just said, if Chief Morgan had not called me that day,
He called you to set the meeting, didn't he?
no, he called to tell me what you guys were looking at doing. The only reason we met was because you were here talking to Mr. Douglas. At the time, he called and said, can we come over and listen? Because when he told me that, I presented some questions. Okay, if that happens, what about this? What about that? How are we going to handle this? And those options. And so that's why the meeting took place. So anyway, just to move on, we were charged to come up with a plan and have it presented back to Mr. Douglas or the chief by Thursday. We met and we did that. Now, I don't know if you guys can go back on what you did or if what you did is done. I don't know how it works. But were you guys afforded a copy of the plan we come up with? Anybody? I'm just asking.
No. And before you go any farther, when I started the meeting today, I said, when we left Tuesday, the rescue squad was to meet Wednesday, come up with a plan, and city staff was going to go over the plan, formulate options, and present council with a viable plan going forward. We are council, we're not staff. He is staff. They are staff, BB and chief, they're staff, we're not staff.
Okay.
The staff was going to come up with a plan to present to council. So we wouldn't necessarily see what you came up with until they came to us with a plan. That's his job. He's the one that plans for us. We take,
Y'all can say it if you want.
but that's, you know, we.
I'm sorry.
I said
He
60
just-
hours of coverage.
It is.
And, you know, that's,
What we come up with as a viable plan, just so you guys will know, was not only a workable solution to getting the job done, it was also a fiscally responsible solution, so you didn't have to have career coverage during that time. We took a lot of things into account when we come up with this plan. When I presented the plan to Chief Morgan, he said this is a very workable plan, it's a doable plan, and it's a very feasible plan. And he was going to bring it back. And at that point, I felt fairly confident that what we come up with would be acceptable to you guys. As it turns out, that's not the case, because I don't think you had information to know what, that's where there's a lack of communication. Had you guys known what we offered as opposed to what you guys offered, we could have come together a little more. That's
Greg,
why
I
I
took a lot
called
of
you
things-
today.
I took a lot of things into account in making a recommendation to council.
I mean, I don't know what they are. Did you take the chief's recommendation into account?
I took that into account, among other things.
Which are,
And I don't have to share those with you. I made a recommendation to council that I thought was the most workable solution for the next 120 days, period.
so what they have to go on is what your opinion is and not ours.
And that's what we've hired him for. And if it comes right down to it, I would trust his opinion more than I would yours anyway.
Okay.
We're the ones answerable, not you.
If I had knew that like that, I might not have voted for it.
I don't have the confidence that they have.
I don't know about that, but I'm saying if I had knew that My opinion might have changed.
I think
This
you
is
need to
something
stop
that I
right there. I think it's starting to get personal. I think we need to stop right here. I think it's getting kind of personal here.
So you're saying you don't want any paid staff on there Monday or Wednesday?
I'm saying we don't need it. Because of the plan we come up with, we convinced ourselves to be more viable, and that's the option that we come up with. Not trying to cover the whole week, the whole everything. As Chief Morgan and I talked during the week, we were talking about hour blocks and, how much hours are available, how much time's allotted for career staff, and those things come into effect. So when we said on an hour basis, 60 hours out of 168 hours was doable for us. It still leaves a burden on the city for 108 hours a week, and I get that. But that's the kind of things we've asked for, coming to this point where we had 2 people, whatever. So we knew that was going to be there. I guess our point is, we are viable. Those are committed times, what's on that paper. In addition to those committed times, when the career staff is working, we agreed to be a second due based on availability. If the career staff's out on call, another call goes in. Based on availability, we'll handle the second call. When a car wreck comes in and the paid staff jumps in the ambulance and they go like they should, we'll come back and get the second ambulance. We'll come and get the crash truck. We'll do whatever we have to do to get that call covered. There's lots of things that go on behind, not only answering calls, standbys. We've got the court report coming up, street scene coming up, the bike rodeo coming up. We still feel committed to all those things.
Well, what I think here is that we have to remember this is only for 120 days until we can come up with something long-term. And it's to ensure that we're going to have people there if we do have multiple calls, okay, if we have more than one call. And make sure that we are serving the citizens as best we can so that we can get everybody there. Now, it's only for 120 days while we take a look at it, or while staff takes a look at it, and comes up with a long-term solution. And, yeah, as they have already said, if even on those days where it's not covered, if volunteers want to come out and can come out, they're not going to be turned away, as far as I know.
No, we encourage volunteers to come. The more we can have. We are just, again, ensuring a minimal level of coverage.
Greg, you offered a solution. You offered 60 hours of volunteer staff.
Yes.
That's not a solution, that's 60 hours. You didn't give us any options for the other 108 hours. So we don't have a solution. We have volunteers that are willing to serve 60 hours. But who do we put in those other 108 hours?
Who do you already have?
We've got 2 part-time and 1 full-time.
Chief Morgan offered that he was going to put out a flyer for 4 additional part-time people.
And how likely is he to get 4 additional part-time people?
That's a debatable on that.
Yeah, it is. It's all debatable. What we've done is last Tuesday, we came up with a plan to get us to today. Today, we've come up with a plan to get us 120 days, which is somewhere in July. Between now and July, we have the opportunity to come up with some real solutions. I don't think we can come up with a solution in a week.
If I can be clear that under this plan presented and adopted by the council, we are relying on the volunteers to commit 48 hours a week. So I don't want there to be any thought that the squad is being shut out. The squad is a vital component of this plan, one of 3 components. So we appreciate committing to those hours, plus any additional hours that you want to expend coming out for calls, answering mutual aid calls, etc. So we encourage you and appreciate the volunteers coming out and providing that service.
Chief Morgan.
Yeah, I just want to touch on one thing just so everybody's kind of aware too, so that way there's no information out there. As AMR does come in, it's still soft billing. So I know there might be some concerns in the community about whether they're going to come in here and do hard billing and still soft billing. We're going to get them access to our system, so that way they can go through the process that we have in place. Now, I want to just touch on one more thing, kind of as well, and just be respectful to the squad who I met with throughout the week, and their passion, which is coming through today, and desire to continue to do what they've done for 80 plus years is there. But dealing with the reality and wanting guaranteed coverage, even in my conversations, as we said, without having someone who you're paying to be in there all the time, you don't have some of those same guarantees. Now, what they did come up with was a plan. It was a good plan of 60 hours, what they realistically could commit to. But when you're required to provide around-the-clock 24/7 public safety coverage in a world of people who are volunteering, have lives and things of that nature, I think the city was faced with a very tough decision. Unfortunately, this costs money, and I understand that there's concerns amongst the squad when it comes to that. But no one, I don't want anyone walking out of here feeling like anyone's being pushed out. They're not. We're just looking at how can we best hold ourselves to our obligation of providing 24/7 coverage. And I think that over time, as the trust gap is replenished, maybe things look differently. But I don't think that we're too far off with what you presented. What you presented, Greg, is still out there, the squad agreed to. And you can respond all during the week. No one's taking that ability away from you guys. I understand your perception might be on the days we can be here, we don't want a babysitter, we can go to these calls. But if something goes wrong from a risk management perspective, the blame doesn't fall on you, the blame falls on us. So you just have to kind of weigh that as well. And I just want to be clear, the goal is to continue to have this squad. It's history within this community. There are people here who are dedicated their lives to it. If anyone feels disrespected at all by any of this today, that is not the intent. I apologize that you feel that way. We're just trying to chart the best way forward.
Chief Morgan, quick question. I know there's a couple people in this town that have once or twice asked to volunteer, but they don't have the time to volunteer all the hours that they're requesting. Is there any hope that maybe going down the road that it could be looked at to where folks who have time to serve can serve without having to pull all those required hours?
That'd be subject to the bylaws that the squad has, and part of my job is looking at the scheduling, right? So the squad comes up with their volunteer hours, we look at our paid staff to supplement the hours, how we got here at the 60, and they can use more people. There's 160 hours in the week. They can't commit to 160 hours, and they've been extremely honest about that. They probably need double their numbers to ever get that way, but in today's world, is that realistic? I think we're just not seeing volunteers coming through, coming up as we would like. We wish more people would, but for the acceptance of volunteers, the squad has their own bylaws, their own rules, and that's their thing. As the public safety director, I deal with more the paid staff and the liaison with the volunteers. I can't control the bylaws and how they let people in.
I know a lot of areas have firefighters that go out on first response. Is that something that could be looked at?
I've talked with Chief Baker about that. I know he's talking with his membership about that, and as far as I know right now, I don't know what decisions will make.
When Mr. Douglas presented a plan to us today, we voted on it, and when I opened the floor, it was for questions concerning how we would move forward. I think we've had some legitimate questions. I think we have some things we need to look at. I don't know that we need to continue on talking tonight or today unless there's a question. Nothing's going to change as far as 120 days is concerned today.
Mr. Mayor, the only question would be,
Well, Shane's up here now.
okay,
Shane Martin from Covington Rescue Squad. The only question I got is for paid guys, how long of a shift are you looking at working them at a time?
That would be Chief Morgan's schedule.
They're working from 7 in the morning to 7 p.m., 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., so it's 12-hour shifts. It's not 3 p.m.
So anything more than that, y'all have to consider somewhere for them to sleep or bunks at the firehouse. Do you have any plans for that? Because I know this man back here has been on for 32 hours, or he will be 32 hours at 11 o'clock tonight, which I'm pretty sure is probably against the law.
That's a very good question, and I know you've talked to me before about sleeping quarters in there. How would that help with the rescue squad and things at the station? We're in discussions because the city owns the building about doing some renovations there, whether depending on people's level of cooperation. So we may, that's an ongoing discussion, the best way to answer that. We have not reached a solution, but we've talked about it. I've approached the fire side about it, about where we can find space for sleeping quarters for the rescue squad, and that's still an ongoing discussion.
Just a question due to safety concerns.
Thank you, Shane, that's a good question.
It comes to making guarantees, like you asked us to do, and then you counter that with career staffing, there's still no guarantee. I'll leave it at that.
You're exactly right. There are no guarantees. At the same time, he's being paid. If he doesn't respond like he's supposed to, then he loses his job. You don't lose your job if you don't respond. You're still a volunteer.
He's under contract, in other words.
Yeah. He has an obligation to respond because he's paid. Now, if he doesn't respond, then he doesn't have a job as far as I'm concerned. He hadn't fulfilled his obligation.
If we don't respond when we're supposed to, what's going to happen to us?
No,
Nothing.
never has that.
You're just going to let us keep on going? You're not going to say, guys, you can't do it no more? You're not doing it? Is that what you're telling me?
Do you want us to help you or not?
My question is, when you have paid staff on, how many are you going to have on at one time?
On Mondays and Wednesdays from 07 to 19, we'll have one. From 19 to 07, we will have one. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, for the entire 24-hour block, we will have two.
Okay, so say that one or two are on a call somewhere. I don't know if you guys are aware, but you don't just go to a call, take care of the patient, drop them off at the hospital, and go back. You end up being at the hospital, giving a report to nurses, doing a lot of paperwork on the computer. You're there, minimum of an hour.
Yeah, we're all aware of the process.
Well, I don't know if everybody here is aware of that. So what happens when another call goes in and you don't have any other paid staff to go on that?
I'll get it.
You're relying on the volunteers?
Yes.
That you don't trust? Is that, I mean,
You know,
it's
you're the
okay.
only one that said we don't trust you.
Well, you said it's a trust issue. Actually, Captain Morgan said right now the reason why we are not going through with our proposed plan is because we are not trusted. Did you not?
I don't know if I said that verbatim, but as I did say this.
There's a trust issue.
You have to hurt people. Something happened. You have to be
Okay,
honest.
but I'm talking about the citizens of Covington. Right now, you do not have a backup plan for when you have a second call. That second call is a stroke or a heart
You are the
attack.
backup plan.
Well, we're not guaranteeing that.
No, you're not guaranteed that.
If we're available.
So do we need to hire more paid staff and forget about the
Well, what I'm
volunteers?
saying is, if we are available, we're not on call. We make arrangements in our lives to be on call.
Which is why we need paid staff, because y'all are not always available. This is pretty simple.
Wait a minute, Josh.
What my thing is.
So you're that-
y'all-
I'm
My
sorry.
thing is, you said you will be available Mondays and Wednesdays.
And some Fridays.
Right, I'm not talking about
Okay.
those days.
Those days are the ones that y'all are responsible for.
Right, right,
I mean, even if you had a backup plan,
right.
what you saying is y'all not gonna be, y'all,
I'm talking about all the other days.
Tuesday, Thursday, y'all not gonna.
No, that's not what I'm saying. We're not down on paper to respond, but we will respond if we are available. See, when we're on paper, we make arrangements to be available.
That
didn't happen Monday morning, because you had somebody on paper. I know, but you're
You're
saying,
right, that did
and there
happen.
have been many times when
Right.
people, and I've sat in the firehouse and heard a call go in, and somebody said, well, I got my 32 hours, I'm good.
Okay, and some people do that, but
And-
not everyone.
The perception out there in the public's what we've got to deal with.
Okay, one more thing. If there is no more Covington Volunteer Rescue Squad, is the city going to be able to afford to pay people 24/7?
That's not even in the discussion.
Okay, that's my question.
And the other thing, to answer another part of your question, when there aren't enough people to respond, we use mutual aid. We've always used mutual aid. Clifton Forge comes and responds. West Rock comes and responds. Mutual aid is mutual aid.